we begin today's episode, I want to tell you about a survey that we're currently taking out. If you're a young person, it takes 3 minutes. First link in description. I really would appreciate it if you take the time. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Politics Relax podcast. Today we're going to be talking about universal credit. First, I'll introduce Ollie. He's a new face, so thank you for coming, and we hope to see you.
Thank you. Absolutely.
So let's talk about this universal credit card. I think I'm going to start because it's frankly shocking and disgusting, especially after the 18 months that people have had. I mean, I've been reading it's going to plunge 800,000 people, over 800,000, into poverty, according to a research. I've also got some polling from the Trussell Trust and YouGov. So the people who say very likely to this after the universal credit, 63% will cut back on clothing for myself. 41% will cut back on food for myself. 19% will fall back on costs for their housing and mortgages. Cut back on heating for your home, 36%, seek support from a food bank, 20%, and cut back on food for my children, 13%. I mean, that is truly shocking, those figures. And this is going to have such a huge impact on the working people of this country, and 40% of them are in work. And these are going to be doctors, these are going to be carers, these are going to be not necessarily doctors, sorry, that's probably a bad example, but carers, these are going to be nurses, these are going to be people who worked really hard, supermarket workers during this pandemic, and then they're going to be punished by this government by taking away over £1,000 a year. And after the fuel shortages and the gas things that mean that prices are going to go up for everybody, it is such a cruel time to be doing this. And they should, at the very least, they should phase it out. But they're not even going to do that. They're going to pull the plug straight from working people. Does anybody?
What I would say is that I take your point, and I agree to an extent. What I would say is that I understand why the government are doing it. The truth is that they were always clear it was going to be a temporary rise. So I view this more as the conclusion of a temporary rise than a direct cut to universal credit. But nonetheless, I would do things differently myself. The way that I believe we need to move with universal credit is to make it more mobile, in the sense that if we're going to phase out this £20, this extra, what we should be doing is we should do it gradually, but we should also be bearing in mind inflation that we're seeing at the moment and the rise in the cost of living, in order to keep it constantly under review. So I think that to take £20 away from all those people on universal credit right now is fundamentally a mistake, and I think it's harsh. So I would like to see the government backtrack on doing that so directly, and instead we can hopefully see a more mobile approach to universal credit in the future.
Yeah, I mean the temporary rise point. It's like if you Cameron, when you start working, if somebody gives you a pay rise, do you then want them a few months later or a year and a half later to say, actually, we're going to take that pay rise back off you? It's not particularly fair on these people. These people have been budgeting for an extra £20 plus the extra around £1,000 they've got for gas. So this is going to cost working people around £2,000 extra a year if you also take the gas shortages we had earlier into account.
Yeah. Well, I'd slightly take issue with that point, because people should not have been budgeting to have this universal credit uplift in their long-term plans, because it was always clear from the government that it was going to be a temporary uplift during COVID. I've made my preferred option clear, and I do believe that there are alternatives that the government should have considered that would be more sensible. But I do think that what the rise was essentially, it was always temporary, and I hope that people budgeted sensibly to include that, because now the money, whether we like it or not, whether people like it or not, will be taken away. And I think it's important, it's salient to people that they have budgeted responsibly.
I think that I'll probably take a similar position. It's very unpopular within the Tory party. Only 34% of Conservative voters believe that it's right to remove the uplift. And 43% said it should be maintained or increased, and 13% said it should remain but kept at a reduced rate. So obviously it's very, very unpopular within the Tory party. I think judging by the plans of the Conservatives to upskill, with new jobs, with higher paid workers and higher paid jobs with higher skills, that phasing that out after that period of phasing out with these new jobs is the time to cut universal credit. I mean, to extent, we've seen that already with Boris Johnson quoting that wages for the low paid have been rising, according to Boris Johnson. So if that does continue, and if that is the truth, then after a period of time, it would be right to cut universal credit, but not right now. In my mind, not right now. Just to finish, a single mother told MPs that with the additional credit, she was managing, and she said, "I can tell you without that £86 at the end of the month, I'll be going back to using my credit card and spiraling into debt." So public opinion is off, and we have seen in the past that the government have backtracked when the public mood is against them. So I think we should, and we might see a backtrack from the government.
Yeah, I would concur with all of your points, and particularly Rajan's just then about the need for Johnson's levelling up. So quickly, just for the years, I'm a Conservative myself, but I would not support this cut to universal credit. And for me, that can only occur in tandem with this sort of level of prosperity and economic growth that would be anticipated for areas, deprived areas. So for me, as Rajan detailed, there would need to be this prevalence of high-paid, high-skilled jobs before the consideration of reducing universal credit came in. I do believe in the long term, perhaps an easing may be necessary, but right now it is simply too much. It's simply indefensible.
Yeah, I'd agree with Rajan, Ollie especially. Cameron, I agree with some of your points, but we're never going to agree.
The bottom line is that fiscal conservatism and fiscal management, responsible fiscal management, is still important, especially coming out of a pandemic when we have £3 trillion of debt. So I can understand why the government, having said for 2 years that this was going to be a temporary rise, are now going to be scaling back on it. But the honest is that I think that we're all going to see the impact that this has on people who have been struggling in society, even with the uplift. And that's going to be something that, along with the rise in prices we're seeing across the country at the moment and inflation, is something to be concerned about. And they should factor that into account and make universal credit more mobile and keep this constantly under review to ensure that while the cost of living is increasing, people are not losing money who need it the most.
You talk about fiscal conservatism and conservative economic policy. Well, let's talk about how much the government wasted on sleazy PPE contracts, because that was over £2 billion. It costs just over £2 billion and a lot less to maintain the universal credit uplift for another 6 months for 6 million struggling families. And talking about the shocking statistics that I read out at the start, 800,000 people are going to be going into poverty. That is shocking. And the fact that the government wasted money to prop up their Tory mate just is endemic of this whole government.
I think I've said to you many times, I think the mismanagement of PPE contracts and giving it to people who aren't the experts in the field, that's probably my least favorite thing about this government. It's just basic common sense and economics that you give it to the people who can handle it better for a lower cost, and you could spend so much more money with the spare money you have on the side. Cameron?
Well, I maintain that on the PPE contracts and the like, that it's important to just wait a few more months until the inquiry and the results of that to see to see how valid these points of view are. But from what I can see, generally, the PPE contracts have been delivered efficiently.
Apart from the multiple government ministers who've been shown to have broken the law on this on the issue, yes, amazing.
I mean, efficiently also takes into account.
What I'm referring to actually is the deliverance of the contracts and the PPE that the country needed at the time.
Yeah, but Cameron, you said in terms of efficiency also takes into account the resources you put in, and I've got to say that the resources we put in was disproportionate to what we needed.
Well, I don't think any of us are qualified to say that until we see the results of the inquiry that will look into these the specifics of these contracts in greater deal than we have access to.
Is our legal system qualified to say that? Because loads of government ministers have been found to have broken the law on the issue. And that is the key thing for me. The other key thing is when a gardening company was given a PB and didn't actually deliver all those contracts. That's just one example of many of these problems. Matt Hancock, his pub landlord, got given millions of pounds in contracts and he's under investigation now. So it's not about waiting months. We already have a lot of knowledge on this, and that's what the legal system has shown us.
Well, what I would say is that I've always maintained that we should wait until the inquiry to make a clear judgment on this. But at the same time, I think that focusing back on the universal credit issue, which I think is the real key issue of what we're trying to talk about today, the money I feel may not be there, but they need to find it to make sure that we can have more mobile universal credit in the future, because what we're seeing now is an important uplift that has sustained people's lives for an extended period of time being taken away. And when you do that, it's clear that some people are going to start slipping through the holes of the net, and we need to make sure that doesn't happen. And I really hope and believe that the government will think about this again, take it into account and reconsider a decision.
Yeah, thank you everybody for coming. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe,